Cast is rated 12. Oops.
I'm Johan Anderson. I'm the studio manager of Paradox Tinto and the creative lead for Project Caesar. We've been teasing you guys about this project for over a year now, and now it's finally time to reveal what this is all about.
Here we go!
With each stroke of the brush, the landscape unfolds. And with every gesture, a path is carved through history. Ambition, once ignited, pushes forward and can never be tamed.
It's a gorgeous trailer.
A new horizon. Drawn from the wells of ancient civilizations, the landscape changes, but the drive remains. Painting with the sharp reds of revolution and the black ash of scorched battlefields.
Oh, that's a cannon.
Legacy is forged of the chosen, tracing the silhouettes of warriors. With the final stroke, like fire across the landscape. Never before has the canvas stretched so far. Europa Universalis.
Oh my god!
Be ambitious.
I'm shocked! Ah! EU5, baby! I do like Be Ambitious and then wishlist on Steam. That's some smart marketing. I mean, you couldn't change the name at this point. I had wondered, I joked about in the past that we're going to change to Terra Universalis. It's like, oh, to show that it's more, worldwide game now. But I'm like, this is why I'm not in branding, though.
It's finally happening. How does it feel?
I don't have words to describe how excited I am about this. This is gonna be so good.
Paradox are such nerds. I love them.
How different of an experience is this going to be for me?
It's not like playing a new expansion. We've tried to change mechanics at every single place. Everything's going to be new. I would say throw away the 5,000 hours, but it's still going to be some things.
So you and the team have been working on this for a very long time. How happy have you been with progress?
Does this bar go to 11?
It can if you want.
Yeah, well...
So very happy.
Yeah, I'm super happy. It's like my team is among the best people I've ever worked with. They're been recruiting people a lot from the community and with people with a lot of experience to be so great. And the amount of history and the amount of mechanics and everything we got into the game is beyond what I dreamed of when we started.
Do you have like a single word in mind to describe the idea behind what you're trying to achieve?
Ambitious, is that a good word?
Ambitious is a very good use.
Yeah, ambitious is a good word.
Describe the game as, we set out very ambitious, and it's a game where you can do pretty much everything.
Everything?
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how I want to play it, there's something for me to do?
Yeah, it's like if you want to play a Hanseatic trader nation, you can do that, just focusing on trade. Or if you want to relive the Ottoman Empire's expansion as a militaristic country, you can do that. Or if you just want to sit and play as your small country somewhere and just get through history, you can do that.
So the world itself is something that's alive?
Yeah, I think that's the best description of the game. We're trying to feel like a game where it shouldn't feel like a game.
So I will have some specific information for you guys after this.
Playing that country through history and guiding it.
And how important
few more minutes.
The community has been to the development?
We get some specificals.
I don't think there's word that I can describe how important they are, because part of my team is built from the community. We have been talking for over a year in various ways, like asking for feedback about the game. Because if there's one thing these 30 years have taught me, is that the community is vital for making a good game. You can't just sit on your own and code something.
Well, Johan, I think I'm ready. Tell me everything there is to know.
How much time do you have?
It's 5,000 hours in EU4, I can spend a little more.
Yeah, well, I brought a bunch of developers that are more knowledgeable about the details of the game than I am, and they're in the castle up here ahead.
Well, let's go find them.
Yes, let's do.
Does anyone know where this is?
Welcome to Skogkloster Slot. The servant here will take care of your sword for you.
Thank you.
You just said the name, but it...
So what happens now? Where should I go?
Well, my journey here is over, but in this castle there's a lot of
Skogkloster, north of Stockholm.
Information you need.
Thank you.
But you need to take this to Eric. He will know what to do with it.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and good luck on your journey.
The long shot on Johan walking out.
Before this castle was built in 1654, this was just a remote slice of land, a blank canvas. The man who built this castle had been in dozens of them before, but he thought to himself, I can build one even better. You've loved and you've lived Europa Universalis, but parrots have thought to themselves, we can build one even bigger and even better. Today, I'm going to take you on a journey to discover how they've done just that with Europa Universalis 5. The first historical relic on our journey.
Hey, Bartleby.
Dave. Hi, Dave.
Oh, hi, Leif. Welcome to the workshop.
It's a great workshop. So this room feels like a pretty good metaphor for the start of game development. How do you even begin with a project as ambitious as Europa Universalis 5?
Well, we started 5 years ago by building a new studio in Spain, specifically to make the project. So we hired modders, we hired super fans. We
Hey,
hired
Zombie. Oh, you want some
the best
gameplay
developers
footage?
from around the world, specifically to make this project.
So once you've assembled this great team, where do you go from that? What's your first starting point?
Oh, we have a new
It
pope?
starts with a vision.
This is bigger news!
That vision
Who cares about the
came from
pope?
Johan, and it was, I want to make the grandest strategy game. That includes everything from having, from being the most immersive game we could possibly make, having a living world where everything feels like it's impacting something else.
So you've taken all the buzzwords, gone historically.
Cardinals wanted to get out, so we could
dynamism,
watch the announcement.
you
That makes
want,
sense.
Immersion. How do you take those ideas and put them into a game?
That's a tricky question. Well, one of the things you start with is making concept art, so we can decide how everything looks and feels.
What's the first mechanic that comes to mind? What do you start with?
Pops, which are population groups, groups of people. So, for example, people of the same culture and religion band together into a single unit, and they can be anything from just one person to a million people. One of these units.
So a single person to multiple millions and millions. So we're simulating hundreds of millions at the start of the game.
We're simulating every person who was alive in 1337.
That's a lot of people.
Yes.
So the population system is tied into everything that you do. How do I get more of them?
With food production. So the more food you produce, the more surplus you have, which increases your population growth. And then, of course, the reverse is true. If they're starving, you're going to lose a lot of pops.
So we're modeling individuals being born, working, dying. I'm assuming they're also going to stratify throughout society. What does that look like?
Yeah, so each pop has a type, a sort of social class, which could be, of course, nobility, burghers, peasants. They all have different jobs, depending on which class they're in, and they also belong to different estates in your government.
So what's an estate? What do they do?
An estate is a group of pops who have a political agenda. Now, most countries have the nobility, burghers, clergy, and peasants. And basically, they all have their own privileges that you give them and can take away from them. You can also sort them by social class. So, for example, clergymen are in a different group from nobility.
And that would be the estate system.
It ties into the estate system, yes.
How does the estate system work?
So your pops organize into estates which have their own agenda. They have their own ideas of how they want to run the country.
What if the nobility decide they want something different to me? Can they just go off and do it?
It depends. If you give them the right privileges, you might give them the ability to build their own fortifications.
Wait, it's Vicky?
Or,
So it's Vic plus
or
CK3?
peasants to arm themselves.
My theory,
So regardless
every
of
single
what
Paradox
they're doing
game
that
up until
privilege,
now
they're
has
going to
simply
do it.
been a
I'm assuming
test bed.
If their
this
agendas and
game.
my agenda line up, that's going to benefit.
So they
my
could make
eyes.
this one perfect.
But they don't always line up. That's the rub.
Is that just echoing me?
What is a privilege? You mentioned nobility building forts. What does that look like in terms of other privileges, like with the clergy?
So you could, for example, give your burghers control over the coinage. It's all about give and take. You almost never want to give them a privilege, but sometimes it becomes necessary.
So give me a context in which it's necessary. Why would I give out a privilege?
Maybe you want to pass something through Parliament, and the nobility say, we'll only let that if you give us this privilege.
If the inverse happens and their agenda doesn't align with me, I need to either bring them under control or pacify them.
Yes, if you're feeling confident, you can remove privileges from an estate, but you need to be sure that you're in a good position to do that.
So it's a constant balance. I need to make sure that they're happy, but not too powerful that they can take me out.
Yes, exactly.
Fantastic. So if I manage to do everything correctly, what does that look like?
If you have a happy populace, happy estates, you have a prosperous nation, and that will allow you to go from this to this.
Well, I've done quite well for myself.
Well done.
Thank you very much.
Paradox are such nerds.
So EU5 stretches from 1337 to 1837. That's 500 years of history.
Oh!
A lot happens.
I think this is the first time we get the end date.
Talk me through how the game changes to reflect the change.
We had the start date,
So we've
but
divided
1837 they just said?
into 6 different
All they'd said until now is
Inside
early
the
19th
villages,
century.
We have different institutions, so that
It's like 150 years almost
slice of
longer
100
than
years or so
U4.
feels different from the previous one or the next one. Is much more about medieval fiefdoms and this sort of old order. But by the end of the game, you have the Industrial Revolution. Prices of coal go up. People are using more modern technology.
Let's talk technologies. These more modern technologies you're speaking about. How does the technology system in the game work?
So once you've embraced an institution, that unlocks a brand new technology tree.
Are they going to show the tech tree? Yeah, there you go.
Players can choose to go down that list and unlock specific things.
They
from
showed
that.
something after the Age of Renaissance.
What exactly
Not allowed.
are they?
So an institution is an idea that spreads. For example, it could be the quest for the new world, which changes the way that you can explore.
So exploration was a big thing during this era. I'm assuming that's also modeled in the game.
Yes.
How does that
Yeah,
work?
breaking their own NDA, I know, right?
Once you reach the age of discovery, you might want to start looking over the oceans and to decide to colonize distant lands.
So colonization then, how does that work?
So any country can colonize, and it's a lot easier if you have Quest for the New World institution embraced. But colonization essentially allows you to take unclaimed territory and absorb it into your empire.
So any country can colonize. I don't have to be a specific nation to colonize.
Hey, Bella.
Exactly.
No, you can't have. It's my
How
lunch.
different does gameplay vary from place to place?
The games vary quite a lot depending on which country you choose. You're impacted so much by your setup, what pops you have, what terrain you have, and what neighbors you have, that every playthrough is going to be different if you're playing with France against Flanders.
But I'm not locked in, am I? I can take the starting position of France and go wherever I want with it. I could colonize, I could fight, I could
Stupid, sexy
focus on the
Flanders.
economy, I could focus on trade.
Exactly. It's not railroaded. You
Yeah,
can
Punisher.
choose which path you want. So you can take France as a big trading nation, or you could just conquer your neighbors.
So the big takeaway is that it is a living world.
Exactly.
But in order to achieve what we've been talking about, to do any of the scenarios we've gone through, I have to take care of my population, right?
Exactly. Your population influences every decision you take. Your population is your economy, and your economy is your population. So you have to look after them if you want to lead your country to wealth.
Well, here's to wealth.
To wealth.
Every Every game needs a solid framework, and EU5 will have just that. The population mechanic will be at the heart of everything that you do, and if you manage it carefully, you will be rewarded with a prosperous realm. Hundreds of millions of people are going to be simulated in a fully dynamic, living world. But what does that actually mean? Let's go to the library to find out.
Oh, you already had your lunch. Hey, I know that guy.
Roger!
This is a library.
That's going to complicate the interview.
Fair enough.
Can you tell me about the living world?
Living world means that things don't come out of nothing. It's the population
Well, that's justified
that
a CB on
live in
Quill's lunch.
locations which produce the goods by working on the resource gathering operations, or RGO for short. And then those goods are used in other buildings.
What are those? How do I build them? How do
RGOs, there's another Vicky term.
Buildings are in locations, and there are many types of buildings.
Well, and Imperator,
all
right?
that do different things. But in general, they will take resources to maintain and to build, and some of them will produce other types of goods. And they will employ the population to do that.
What would I do with those goods?
All the goods produced, both raw resources and refined goods, go into the market. And from there, they are used to supply the needs of the population and the needs of the buildings.
So, what is a market? How does that work?
Yeah, it's a difficult concept. Imagine you're playing as England, for example. You have a market center in London, and that would attract the locations around it to the London market. Locations will be pooled towards one market or another, depending on the conditions, and all the locations belonging to a market will get the resources from that market.
So if another market has something that I don't have, I can trade for it.
Yes, exactly. If you need some good in your market that you don't have access to, you'll have to make a trade deal between any two markets that you have access to.
Let's say a location is in the market of Scandinavia, let's call it. Is that permanent or can they shift?
No, markets are completely dynamic. Every
Dynamic
location
trade
will
markets.
belong to a market or another market,
Not
depending
physically
on
fixed.
different factors, and markets themselves can be created and destroyed completely freely. Well, freely. They have a cost.
So I, as a player, can both create and destroy markets
Yes,
under
you
my
can-
control.
Yes, you can create your own market if you are, for example, if you are playing in Sweden and you don't have a market because you're trading in the market of Lübeck, for example, and you see it more beneficial for you to have a market in Stockholm, you can create a market in Stockholm.
Demoniac.
In this Stockholm market, let's say I wanted something like legumes. How could I get it if it wasn't already in my market?
If you want some good that's not in your market, then you'll have to make a trade deal. A country can make a trade deal between any two markets that they have access to, and that would move the goods from the stockpile of that market to the market you're moving.
So if I'm Sweden, I can have Danish provinces in my location.
Yes, the goods produced in the Danish locations will be used in your market.
So if I'm buying goods and selling goods, what determines the price of those goods?
Trade deals have a cost based on the distance between the markets and also depending on the price of the specific good. Each good have a base price, and also it will be modified depending on basically supply and demand between the different markets they are being traded to. So if a good is very abundant in a market, it will be cheap. And if it's not that abundant or basically scarce, it will be expensive.
How do I get the money to then buy goods at a loss?
Countries can gain income from a variety of sources, but the main one is basically taxing your population. However, you won't be able to completely tax all your population because it will depend on the control you have on the locations.
So what's control?
Control is an indicative, or basically the amount of power that your country has in a location, and it will irradiate from your capital. You have your cabinet to increase control if you want.
How can I gather more taxes from like a location?
But the main tool that the country
Yeah, it controls sort of the inverse of autonomy, yeah, probably.
Gives me an idea.
Yeah.
Thanks, Roger. So Roger has just told us about the living world, dynamic markets, and how to build a prosperous nation. But all I heard was newly conquered territories. Let's head to the Armory.
Oh yeah, of course, controls in CK3, yeah. I like how Mubot is still saying, what could Project Kaiser be?
Oh, Eric!
Welcome to the Armory.
Thank you.
Such nerds.
I've been given this map. I think it's finally time we show them.
Let's do that.
This is a map of 1337, but how accurate is it?
Well, Leith, I would say this is the most accurate and granular map we ever made for a grand strategy game.
So you're going to need to take me through this beautiful map here. How important is historical accuracy to something like this?
I'm glad you asked, because basically the map we're starting in 1337, I would say we made a huge effort in making it as accurate and granular as possible.
Yeah, start date is April
That
3rd,
obviously
1st,
has its
1337, yeah.
For example,
Pretty sure we did know
the
that
warfare end of
before this.
things, since now the diversity
We didn't know the end date yet,
is
though.
huge, so
That was
a
a big
lot
one.
of things can impact the outcome of a war. So basically what we are talking here is that, for example, let's say if you had a military campaign in something around the Caucasus area over here with Armenia and the potential rise of Ottomans and this part of the world, what you would encounter is that it's a very steep place with sort of very thin areas to go through. And that obviously you might feel it like it's an opportunity, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's a trap. It's a huge trap. By that, which I mean is that things like, let's say, rivers, mountains, straits, those definitely can define the outcome of a battle and potentially the outcome of a war. So you have to be
You're building the
very
game too?
careful with how
Yeah,
you
I mean,
put your
U4
moving
has a whole
troops
world.
in the map.
So before
So
we
one
even
would
get
certainly
to
have expected U5
what
to have the same.
preparations do I need to make to supply my armies?
I would say, first of all, that going into a war is not easy at all. And yeah, you can be challenged in case they declare to you if you are not prepared. In case you are the one that wants to be the aggressor, I would say that the first thing to consider is building a war chest. That would be for starters. But also you
End date
have
was
to be very careful with
1837?
the production game loop of things. Because at starting date, basically you rely a lot into raising levies. And those levies come from population. And the thing is that this population is the one that's responsible for the outcome of your buildings. So what I'm saying here is that when you start a campaign in 1337 and you raise all your levies, you're making your buildings empty, part of them.
See. So you're telling me that if I raise all of my levies, get into a bad battle, and my army gets wiped out, I'm also wiping out all of my populations at home, so there's no one to work in the field.
That reminds me of Vicky problems
That
right
is
there.
correct.
Good to know.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about military objectives, what are some of those military objectives? Can I tell an army to go siege? Can I tell an army to go engage other armies? How does that work?
Definitely. Like for starters, there would be one of the most used, I assume, is going to be the carpet siege, which basically is the one that allows you to make a lot of your armies go straight towards the forts of your enemy. So you don't need to be micromanaging on that regard. And that obviously has its pros and its cons. Like, let's say you are too lightly on these tools and you use them a bit too much, maybe you are not defending your own country, because there is a military objective to defend your own lands or to call everyone back to defend. But if you are just using the tools in an aggressive way, it's probably gonna screw you up when it comes to the enemy.
To be clear, for a few
So
people
let's say,
panicking,
hypothetically, I am an
you see,
Englishman.
there's still
and I want to
absolutely
press my
standard
right claim on the
EU4
world.
style army controls.
Can I use my superior navy and sailing ability?
Also other features.
Definitely, 100%. Like, navies in EU5 are meant to be, first of all, for movement of troops. That is a huge thing that helps the troops to move around, but also it supplies nearby armies. So that would be something to take into account. I would also add to this that if you, as an Englishman, start, let's say you go with another one, and you go here, and you start going deep into French territory, thanks to your navies, basically.
I want to play this board game.
What you get is that a lot of the locations in France, when you occupy them, you can basically get their food.
So I can live off the land in France?
Yes.
Ideally.
That's the...
Which is historically how these things worked.
Also, like, it goes both ways, because you get the food of the enemy, and that means the enemy doesn't get that food. So that is pretty good for your outcome.
So you mentioned that wars are won and lost according to your economy, if you're out too long. How do I win a battle?
Winning a battle can be decided by a lot of factors. First of all, as the most usual one, if you have the biggest army, you probably will win. But the thing is that this game doesn't assure you that.
So the different factors are size of the army,
Yes.
professionalism of the army,
Yes.
the general, the terrain,
Yes.
and beyond.
Yeah, I would say supplying your army with food. If an army has low morale due to low food supply, then it's another factor to consider. An
So if
army,
they're starving to death, they can't fight.
basically that.
So what are the potential ramifications of starvation then?
That your entire army could die of starvation, which would be a very bad outcome, I would say so. And that means probably that the enemy will be super happy about it. So, but yeah, in order to supply your army, you would have to consider, first of all, supply depots. That's something you have to get from locations in order to, especially if your campaign is long and you are very deep into the enemy land. And there's some countries here that I would say are huge in terms of territory. Let's say you start as Morocco and you want to invade Castile. So the more you get into the specific territory, the more you might be punished unless you prepare fine with it.
So if I'm Tunisian
Yes.
and I want to invade Castile,
Yes.
the deeper I go, the more I need to consider supply because I could be cut off.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. But not only that, because if you don't make sure that your own country is safe in terms of occupations, then you could face another problem, which is that your enemy cuts down your supply. And that would mean that at the end, you wouldn't get that much needed food.
Let's say I have a weaker economy than my opponent. They're going to win. Am I able to secure quick tactical victories in order to beat my opponent? How can I take their resources away from them?
Well, that's a very good question, because there's a lot of opportunities. For once, the map we have in this game allows you to browse very carefully which enemy locations might be producing...
More detailed version of army nutrition than I already had, yeah. Tonto, that sounds about right.
Their units. So I guess a smart choice...
Hey, it's 12:30!
For example,
Okay.
choose the Golden Horde. So Golden Horde relies heavily...
Couple things. One, a video just went live on my channel.
So if you detect
I will want everyone to go and click on that, but I will be able to show it here so we can continue the conversation in this context. A lot of things I can all of a sudden say now that it's 12:30.
Up their ranks once they have some losses.
But I don't want to talk
and
over
that
them.
would benefit you a lot. That also would include other types of factors, like, let's say, if you are occupying a location that is meant to be a huge food supply for your enemy, then you are doing a very good strategy because you are cutting them down as well. Actually, the magic of this granularity, that it allows you to, if that country is facing other wars, or if that country is just having an internal problem with the managing of their supplies, then you have an...
Click the video link.
So, yeah,
You don't have to watch it right this second.
If you are using a small country, you're playing a small country, you might have a chance to succeed.
So it's less about the size of the dog in the fight and more about how much food is in his food bowl.
Yeah, that I would say that. Yes.
Nice.
There's many ways to punish your enemy. Another good option, obviously, but that even comes from EU4 times, although in this case I would say it's harder, would be to occupy the capital. When you occupy the capital of the enemy, basically you are...
The victor.
Yeah.
Well, Eric, thank you so much for all that fantastic information, but I have just one more question for you. How many princes are there in the HRE?
People are excited about this.
Eric?
Two Princes?
Eric
It's a good
left
song.
Before I could get all the answers that I wanted, but fortunately I know somewhere else that I can seek guidance.
Still going. This is only supposed to be 30 minutes. Yeah, the screenshot on Steam shows 329. Was it princes or just electors, or that one on the same?
Forgive me, random church bench dev, for I have sinned.
I have a question about faiths.
About your faith?
No, about faiths in the game.
Oh, well, that I can help you with. We do have around 300 faiths in the game. There's, for example,
Such nerds.
Catholicism, there's Buddhism, there's Zoroastrianism, there's Shintoism, and plenty of faiths.
And do they have their own unique mechanics?
Yes, everyone has own unique set of mechanics that they can interact and play with.
And I'm assuming all these different pops have varieties of different faiths.
Yes, each pop will belong to a specific faith. And in your country, there could be pops of many diverse faiths that you will have to interact with, and they could be perfectly happy, but they could also be unhappy when their different faith could become a problem for you.
So if there's a pop that has the same faith as me, they're perfectly happy?
Not necessarily. They can be perfectly unhappy while sharing your own faith.
Great.
You will have a lot of minorities, both of culture and of faith in your
Hey,
country,
Wrath, thank you very much.
Mostly. And what you can do about them is, well, you can convert and assimilate them, or you could tolerate and accept those cultures and those faiths.
You mentioned that I can tolerate them. Does that mean that I can have a fully tolerant society, tolerating all minorities?
Yes, if you're particularly humanist, that's definitely a goal to strive towards.
So you're saying, what does that mean? How does one become humanist?
Well, humanism is a societal value in the game, which is opposed to spiritualism. And
My video includes some conversation about these
easier
values.
to convert and assimilate. And it's one of dozens of societal values that we have in the game. For example, you could be more innovative, or you could be more traditionalist, or you could focus your army, for example, on quantity or on quality, but you can't do both.
Can you give me an example of a major situation that would impact my societal values?
Well, there's one which will come fairly early on in the game, which is the Black Death, which will happen around like 10, 15 years after the game starts.
Yeah, you've been playing for 30 seconds, lose half your population.
Of the globe.
What can I do to lessen the impact of the Black Death?
Well, you can try different things. You can try to build hospitals, you can maybe establish a quarantine, procure remedies.
Yeah, the shifted start date means
well,
you get to deal with the Black Death. It also means you're around for the start of the 100 Years' War, instead of just the end.
Our tour today is at an end, but it's just the start of our grandest journey yet. We'll find out whether your reign will be known as a glorious golden age or for carnage and chaos. Will you carve your name into history or be a mere footnote in someone else's chapter? In Europa Universalis 5, anything is possible. History is yours to write. One final piece of advice. Be ambitious.
Yeah, actual injury 30 minutes, not preamble. Alright, assuming that's the wrap up. Turn off the window capture, do this. I did double check. I can show. Hey, shush. Shut up, Quill. Hang on a second. Hang on, bring it over to this window, close that. Remax. Bring this up. All right. Now, I would still very much appreciate if everyone could go and click the link to the video in the, so that, you know, we get the YouTube algorithm properly giving some credits. But we can watch this together over here. Hey folks, Quilly18 here, and welcome to my first impressions video for Europa Universalis 5. That's right, we can actually call it by its name. It may have been the worst kept secret in gaming history ever that Project Kaiser, or Caesar, however you prefer, was in fact EU5, but it now has been officially announced. We have a trailer for it, which is playing in the background, but there will be some gameplay footage in this. I'm an expert ventriloquist. Limited to showing no more than 15 minutes of gameplay footage, which is not really conducive to doing a Let's Play, especially the way I play, where often takes me 30 minutes just to unpause, and that's when we're playing Pac-Man. So what I've done here is I've tried to collate the features and changes that I thought were the most remarkable, especially when we're comparing and contrasting between EU4 and EU5, and made it into this scripted video with some gameplay footage to support that. We're gonna have another bit of a discussion at the end of that segment with some more general overall thoughts and impressions, but here we go. I can guarantee there will be some proper classic Quilly18 extended long form Let's Plays for EU5 on the channel in the future, whenever that becomes an option. But for now, I hope this will sate your appetite, and I will be very much looking forward to answering additional questions on my live streams, or if you are a YouTube member or Twitch subscriber over on the Discord, we can have some conversations about the game at this point. Folks, enjoy this little pre-scripted, very rare for my channel, content, and I'll talk to you again at the end of the video. 1337 start date. EU5 starts on April 1st, 1337, over a century earlier than EU4's 1444 start. This gives us the Black Death as a major early game event, and oh boy, you definitely feel it. We also get to experience the start of the... I'm really pissed in my final cut for this that I put online. I forgot to include the map, like the sort of disease map, to really highlight how much this kicks your ass. 100 Years' War instead of just catching the tail end of it like in EU4. While playing at Scotland, this was particularly important, and I was quick to accept the call of the Old Alliance, siding with France against perfidious Albion. As far as I can tell, the end date hasn't been officially confirmed other than early 19th century, which is the same as EU4, but that still means over 100 years more gameplay. This longer time frame gives us more historical eras to progress through and new ages to experience. No more mana points. Whether you loved it or hated it, the mana system is gone. I, for one, love the happy brain chemicals that happen when you spent Monarch points to unlock attack or boost stability, but it was something that was very reactive instead of requiring forward planning, which was something that people had a lot of comments about. Now, characters still have administrative, diplomatic, and military attributes, though they range from 0 to 100, and it impacts their effectiveness in their particular roles, instead of generating abstract points. More. Something I should say, on Saturday, we'll be able to do this with me giving just a lot more commentary and a lot more details. Just tons more. Here, basically, all I can do is play you the video. So Saturday, more stuff. On characters in a little bit. Economic sliders. Sliders are back, baby! Like older Paradox games, and specifically I'm thinking of EU3 here, we're getting more sliders for... No, we don't play on Saturday. Sure, EU4 did let you balance I can just talk about it through some sliders for military spending and the like, but we've got more fine-tuning available to us here in EU5, right down to the ability to tax individual population classes. Now, when I'm thinking of EU3 in particular, not all the old sliders were interesting and fun mechanics to engage with, which brings me to... value system. The value system is something that harkens back to EU3's domestic policy sliders, but in a way that I think is a big improvement. Unlike EU3's long cooldowns where moving a slider could lock you out for years, values in EU5 can be influenced gradually through events, laws, policies, and most importantly, cabinet actions. Your advisors can actively work to shift your nation's cultural direction between traditional values like serfdom, spiritualism, and communalism, or more progressive ones like innovation, humanism, and capital economy. Neither direction is inherently better, and it's going to come down to what strategy and philosophy you're looking to pursue for your nation. Because it consumes a cabinet action slot, forcibly shifting your values is something you're really going to have to think about, because it conflicts with some of the tools you have to increase development and stability, as well as things like integration and conversion of provinces. Character-driven gameplay. EU5 brings character depth closer to Crusader Kings 3, or even Imperator. You get full dynastic trees, inheritance laws, and individual character traits. That being said, this isn't Crusader Kings. You're running a nation, not focusing on playing as a member of your dynasty. But there are distinct characters in your court with meaningful actions. For example, when you do go back and watch this on YouTube, rewind that part and like play it through very slowly to see everything that's going on in that particular interaction in the UI. There's so much to say. For example, appointing a member of your family as a general increases the power and influence of the crown. Alternatively, you might marry off your specific individual children to help solidify alliances. And actually, a royal marriage between two rulers will immediately form a union between those two countries. Though every country has its own inheritance laws, which, if they differ, may cause a union to break on character death, as the rulers would then be different. Population system. EU5 moves from abstract development to actual people in a way that's going to be very reminiscent of something that we've seen in Victoria 3, for example. Each location has specific pops, nobles, clergy, burghers, peasants, and slaves that drive your economy, your politics, and your military strength. These pops have characteristics including culture, religion, social class, and literacy, which impacts both technological advancements and, to quote, the pop's understanding of their position in life. Whatever that means. Pops do have satisfaction levels that if too low create problems. Your population consumes various resources based on their class, so nobles will demand luxury goods, where peasants kinda just need basic food. Unlike EU4, where development and colonization happened abstractly, in EU5 pops must physically exist and migrate, making population a limiting factor in growth and expansion. It isn't just numbers, it's a living demographic that shifts based on migration, war losses, and economic opportunity. Estates. Estates are a more integrated first-class mechanic in EU5 compared to EU4. You'll see their satisfaction levels clearly visible at all times in the top toolbar. And since pops drive so much of your nation, it makes sense that estate power and satisfaction flows directly from them. Fill your provinces with burghers by promoting rural settlements to towns and cities and watch their political influence surge. It's not fixed percentages anymore. Your demographic choices directly impact who holds power in your realm. Again, somewhat reminiscent of the political system in Victoria 3. Create a merchant empire, burgher power skyrockets. Fill your lands with peasants, commoner estates gain strength. This also applies to cabinet positions and things like generals. Assigning characters from estates to these roles will grant more power to those estates. Your royal family always belongs to the crown estate, so having relatives in positions of power directly strengthens centralization. Though assigning your heir to lead an army carries its own risks, of course. Dynamic market system. Trade in EU5 is a complete overhaul of EU4's node system. Instead of fixed trade routes, we have actual markets with real supply and demand mechanics. Each market has a trade advantage ratings, capacity, and price differentials that determine profitability. At a glance, it might seem absolutely overwhelming, but you have a lot of tools to make sense of the chaos. Markets have a search bar with filters for finding specific goods or conditions. The automation button lets you set it and forget it if micromanagement isn't your thing. The devs mentioned several team members play with fully automated trade. What's fascinating is that markets aren't just abstract concepts. They operate in physical space where your maritime presence and infrastructure directly impact your reach and influence. You can belong to and operate in multiple markets at once and choose which ones to manage and which ones to automate individually. Goods and production. Goods are central to everything in EU5. Unlike EU4, with trade goods were mostly just income modifiers, here they're physical resources needed for buildings, armies, and population. Each building requires specific goods to operate and even to construct. Try building a church without glass for windows or stone for foundations. Your armies need food to function, and your pops consume various goods based on their social class. Production buildings transform raw materials into processed goods, lumber into paper, grapes into wine. These are concepts which will be very familiar to anyone who has played Victoria 3. The scarcity or abundance of these resources creates meaningful economic decisions. Do you import expensive glass for that cathedral or develop local glassworks first? These interconnected production chains create a living economy rather than the abstract wealth of EU4. Army composition through the ages. Part of the goal of EU5 is to model the transition from feudal levies to standing armies as one of the core historical transitions captured by the 1337 start date. As such, there are 3 distinct military unit classes, each with different roles. Levies are cheaply raised local troops, regulars are your professional standing army, and mercenaries offer flexibility at a cost. As you advance through the years, Sorry, I just want to answer Grumpy Oldie's question. They said over on Twitch, I wonder how long it took to make a scripted video like this. Much longer than Let's Play, I'm sure. Dude, it's been so much freaking work. It doesn't help that this is so not my style of content, generally speaking, right? But no, I mean, there's a reason there hasn't been more stuff on YouTube this week. Part of it was, yes, I was sick for 3 days, but what like gram of energy I could summon up had to be committed to working on this, because I like missed so much time from being away and then being sick. It's been a catch up. I only finished my edit for this morning. And yeah, it's been crazy, but you know, hopefully it's a video that gets good views and is useful for people. And again, we're going to have so much more conversation about this on Saturday. There will be less emphasis on peasant rewindings and the absolute levies to standing armies as one of the core historical transitions captured by the 1337 start date. As such, there are 3 distinct military unit classes, each with different roles. Levies are cheaply raised local troops, regulars are your professional standing army, and mercenaries offer flexibility at a cost. As you advance through the years, there will be less emphasis on peasants with sticks, and more on a permanent professional military. There are of course also different types of units, and actually a lot more than just the infantry, cavalry, artillery options from EU4. You can freely reorganize regiments between armies as needed, and I strongly suspect this is going to be an area that will see a lot of min-maxing and optimization once more players start tearing into the game mechanics. Army and Navy objectives. EU4 eventually got a bit of army automation, but EU5 really gives you a lot more tools in this regard. You can absolutely still manually control all of your armies, and likely will during the critical phases of war. But like Hearts of Iron and Imperator, you can assign armies specific objectives, patrol territories, perform carpet sieging or more careful, focused sieging, or performing logistic and support duties. This reduces micromanagement while giving you strategic control. The same applies to your navies, and even in peacetime, this is a way to help you build maritime control and expand your economic reach. 27,518 unique locations. The map is big and incredibly detailed. In EU5, I hope you enjoy this. 27,000 locations. Compare that to EU4's 3,200 land provinces. And each one can be upgraded through the settlement hierarchy, creating a lot more meaningful map interactions beyond just conquering provinces and painting the world in your color. Locations have control values that decay with distance from your power centers, your capital. Far territories require governors or naval presence to maintain control, making huge empires much harder to manage. One of the goals with EU5 is to give you ways beyond simply blobbing to become more powerful. In fact, they're hoping to... I just want to note that that pan was only within like the visible region that I could see loaded in here is Naples as well. Right? I'm only seeing a fraction of the world. Is to give you ways beyond simply blobbing to become more powerful. In fact, they're hoping to make full world conquest basically impossible, though I'm sure plenty of players will find ways to achieve that. Automation options. Alright, I think by now it's pretty clear that EU5 is a huge, complicated beast with a ton more systems and subsystems than EU4. That's one of the reasons that now there are options for enabling automation on nearly each individual mechanic in the game. Something that reminds me a lot of the excellent Distant Worlds series, the Space 4X game. Anything you don't want to deal with, or at least don't want to deal with right now, can be set on auto while you focus on more pressing matters. We talked about assigning objectives to armies and navies. Maybe you don't want to optimize attack sliders to keep the burghers above 50% contentment. Well, there's a button specifically for that. I love trade mechanics in strategy games, but sometimes I just need to make sure the basics are being handled while I navigate a war, especially when I'm part of more than one trade market. Now I can go and on an individual basis, make sure that I'm using up all of my trade capacity without having to double check every 2 seconds. I just want to rewind here just to note what I was showing physically on the screen there that I didn't actually say out loud with the locking here. Up all of my trade capacity without having to double check every 2 seconds. Nearly every screen in the game has one, and often many, toggles for automation. You can even choose to automate entire sectors of the game, which might be really useful when you're just learning EU5 and want to concentrate on mastering just one area at a time. Replayability through stories, emergent and otherwise. EU5's 1337. Hey Nihilus, this is my gameplay. This I was running it on my computer, playing it myself. Yeah. Start date creates stories, emergent and otherwise. EU5's 1337 start date creates a dramatically different historical playground than EU4. But more than that, it seems to push to create more unique stories for each nation. I played as Scotland, where right from the start you find yourself in the Civil War. The throne is contested by Edward Balliol, an English puppet, while your legitimate king, David II, who's still a child, is exiled in France. The Scottish budget is tight, the tension between different culture groups is high, the ability to trade is limited, and the Black Plague is set to arrive at any moment. I was presented with decisions about how to educate David. Should he take up a more French-style education? Should he turn and embrace a Highland culture? And what kind of implications would this have for my nation going forward? I also played as Naples, an incredibly wealthy trade nation with a king who controls not just one country, but has a royal union with several neighbors, and a potential for even more after death. The biggest political issue here isn't what to do about the silly English, but rather the need to navigate the harrowing waters of diplomacy between the Italians, who would bend the knee to the Holy Roman Empire, and those who are loyal to the Pope. Organizations. One thing that was particularly important in my Naples gameplay was the new international organizations mechanic. EU5 transforms previously hard-coded systems into a fully dynamic framework encompassing everything from major structures like the Catholic Church and the Holy Roman Empire to personal unions, coalitions, and religious bodies. As a bonus, these are 100% scriptable and extendable for modders, which is awesome. It's weird to call EU4's excellent diplomacy simple by comparison, but these organizations really do feature more complex and varied mechanics. Personal unions function as defensive alliances with varying integration levels, while the Middle Kingdom, China, operates with tribute systems and celestial authority. The system includes temporary organizations like crusades and jihads, cultural entities like the High Kinship of Ireland that persist as long as qualified members exist, and numerous religious bodies that function as organizations themselves, creating a labyrinth of political, religious, and cultural associations that evolve throughout the game. And that brings us to the end of the prepared and scripted content for this video. Got a few more things and comments I want to make over here, but first I do want to say if you are new to the channel, of course, make sure to subscribe, and in general, leaving a like and a comment makes a big, huge difference. Now, what did it actually feel like to play Europa Universalis 5? Well, it felt like playing Europa Universalis, and that's, I think, the most important point over here. Obviously, a lot of different mechanics have been pulled in from other Paradox titles, right? We've got the production, the goods, and the pops system, very reminiscent of something like Victoria 3. But then we also have extra character-driven gameplay like we get in Crusader Kings 3, or even Imperator, which apparently is in quite a good state right now, actually, with the latest patch and some fan content. Imperator is apparently quite a great thing to play. But yeah, so despite those mechanics having been pulled in, EU5 still feels like Europa Universalis. And that's really important to me because I've always said that EU4 in particular was my favorite of the Paradox Grand Strategy games. We haven't played it in a bit. Ironically, I was preparing to start a new Let's Play for EU4 right before I got access to EU5, so that threw everything out the window. Also, my timing for EU5 and the window that I had to play it. Oh, I wanted to say, it was almost exactly 10 years ago. We're like just a few days short. 10 years ago, almost exactly, is when I did my Italian run of EU4. So I was thinking of doing another Italian run of EU4. It helps that I've just been to Italy, so I've got that on my head. And I thought, oh, that'd be quite nice. And I was getting ready for it. And then this came through, and I was like, oh, I guess I'm not starting my EU4 Let's Play yet. Window. Also, my timing for EU5 and the window that I had to play it, which is now past, was very awkward because I was away for a big part of it. I was out of the country for some work travel, and then when I got back, I got sick, which was so frustrating to me because all I want to do is sit in front of the computer and play more of this. My particular gameplay that I played for fun and for learning was before the trip, and I hadn't been recording that. So that's why the footage in this particular video is mostly in the early game as I sort of reloaded things and tried to bring up things. I know everyone's going to be itching for just pure, unaltered, full-length Let's Plays. I can guarantee, I have no doubt, those are coming over to the channel here. What parts of the game were my favorite? Well, definitely was the production and the goods and the trade. It's always been my favorite part of EU4. I love to play nations that expanded heavily into trade, either through colonization or just through dominating, trade nodes and then propagating down that way. It's always been so very satisfying to me. And that's despite the fact that the more I think of it, it's crazy. Trade in EU4 was one of my favorite things to do. But the more I think about it, the more trade in EU4 was very simple and basic and static. Nodes were static. Goods were really nothing, right? It was just, well, this province has this good versus this good, so it gives me more value for my production. And, yes, if we traded, or if we had control over a certain amount of a certain good, then we might get a certain empire bonus while we had that kind of monopoly going on. But there really wasn't that much going on to it. And I'm so pleased that in EU5 that's been expanded. And I think in a very real sense, EU5 is benefiting tremendously from the experiments that went on in other recent titles. Obviously, Imperator could be one thing to look at, but also Victoria 3. And honestly, in my opinion, and because I put European Universalis on such a high pedestal, I am happy to think those games were just test beds to improve and to develop technologies and gameplay that would then make it into EU5 and make sure it was done right at that point. It is these new systems are nearly overwhelming in how much there is. But you do have that extra base with the automation, which I think is going to be nice. And I really am curious to see how different people will lean into different aspects of it. One of the things I've complained about, and those of you who watch the channel know that I've complained about this endlessly, is the sort of annoying micromanagement that can go on with military and some things. I've complained in Europa or Crusader Kings and things like, why can't we have the ability to right click on an enemy unit and just have your army go and chase that things down and follow it, which you can do in Stellaris? Well, there's literally a little chase command in EU5 to do exactly that if you right click on an enemy army. I don't think that was showcased in any of the videos here. But at the same time, that may be less important because now the army objectives, or army and navy objective system is in here to automate some of that tedium away. And as I said in that section, I have no doubt that in the thick of like the most critical portions of war, you're still going to be managing your armies manually, and it still feels exactly the same as managing your armies in European Universalis or Crusader Kings, right? You've got your big blobby army that you're kind of moving around. There's a little bit more complexity there because not only is there sort of the attrition system, which we've had before in EU4, but supply lines and food is certainly something. Armies do need to get food from nearby provinces. Actually, and this wasn't really showcased in the video, but the way that food in your entire nation is worked and operated, the way food works inside of a particular trade market, the way it gets distributed to provinces is really fascinating to me, and adds an extra layer of realism and complexity. But complexity is an interesting topic in any game, really, and potentially even more so in Paradox games, which are notoriously fairly complicated. But when the complexity comes from something that is intuitive to us as human beings because it's something that we deal with in real life, it's less bad. I think that's one of the reasons that Crusader Kings work so well. Because let's be honest, Crusader Kings 2 or 3, for example, they are very complex games with a lot of different systems going on in them. And yet they don't tend to feel that intimidating because at its core, it's just people doing people things mostly, right? The hardest thing is understanding what the word primogeniture means, because it's not a word that we've encountered a lot. And so systems, I think, can be fairly complex in games, but still feel approachable if that complexity isn't arcane, because it is rooted in basic stuff. With buildings, well, they take good A and turn into good B. Okay, I can kind of understand that. I do suspect, even me with my incredible love of trade, I strongly suspect the markets are going to be something that I do automate quite often. Because as we saw with, like, if you go back and check the Naples section, I mean, Naples has so much trade potential that using it all up in the most efficient way was just going to involve, it wasn't going to be anything complicated, but it was just going to involve a lot of little clicking. Okay, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to do a level 3 silver import from the Genoa market, and then, okay, and then the trade differential won't be as profitable. So then I'll start another one here, and then another one here, another one here. And that little clicking and micro seemed pretty quickly to me like, okay, that might get a little bit annoying and tiring to do. But you can just hit automate, and then presumably it'll just keep trying to do the most profitable trades. But you might want to still prioritize things. For example, there might be goods that your population needs to be happy, which isn't the most profitable, but you want to make sure it comes in. What I liked, and again, if you go back to check that section, you can lock a trade after you set up a trade. In fact, I think by default, any trade you initiate manually is set to this locked state, where even if you automate trade in a market, it will not change the trade that you set up manually, that you locked in place there. So you get the best of both worlds. You get the manual control to make sure that certain things are being done right, and then you got the automation to fill in the corners and cover the bits that might feel a little bit tedious. It's like, say, the carpet sieging. And yeah, Europa Universalis did ultimately get some automation for, rebel suppression and sieging. And I say eventually, I mean, at this point, it's been in there for a long time, but these weren't necessarily things that were in to start off with. And that helped a lot. But it's the extra tools in here are fantastic. And it's one of the things I always praised Imperator quite highly for, because it had some of these features. And so I really like that. You've won the war, you've handled your armies manually most of the time. Now it's time to go and give them all the carpet siege command. And I didn't really highlight it in this video, but there's a focus siege command, which keeps your armies in bigger groups, so they're less vulnerable to having their little micro stacks wiped, and also make sure they prioritize fortresses. So I like that there are two different siege options. There's an automated option for having your armies handle some logistic tasks, like go and refill your food supply. And then, yeah, several different options there for your navy as well. And I think that's really important when you've got games as big as really any of these Paradox Grand Strategy games, but again, EU4, which tries to do so many things, it's going to, I said EU4. EU4 does try to do so many things. EU5 tries to do even more things, and so it might be important to add even more of those. So we'll see how it's going to come down a lot to, are those automations smart anyway? I don't know if I'm going to want to automate, say, buildings, right? Because building the wrong building in a way that doesn't align with my long-term plans might be really not ideal. But the trade one, I think, is great, huge, no-brainer. All the army ones, again, really, really good there. But you can expand. You can automate the political system. If you don't understand how to use your cabinet members, and you don't want to on this particular game, then you can do that. I think it's going to be good for people who are learning, right? Automate certain aspects of the game while you focus on others, and then change things as you go on. I don't know what the mass appeal of EU5 will be, in a sense, right? It's really easy to sell Crusader Kings to people who aren't grand strategy aficionados, because it's about people, because you can, make the Game of Thrones reference or this or that. It's fairly easy to sell, say, Stellaris to a lot of people as their, an introduction to a grand strategy game / 4X game / whatever we want to call what Stellaris is, because sci-fi is cool. And while it does, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in Stellaris, it does sort of build up a little bit more slowly for you. You start with just one planet, and then you expand from there. Europa Universalis, even EU4, I was always like, how do you sell this to people other than, it's risk on crack? Or I would often say something like it's the, playing Civilization is like being in high school. Playing Europa Universalis is like going to university. It's more specialized. It's not that it's necessarily more advanced. Honestly, all the different subjects you had to deal with in high school can sometimes be a bigger pain in the butt than the more focused and specialized experience that you get in universities. But that's still kind of what it felt like to me. So I certainly hope absolutely that EU5 is a massive success. And I think for me, it's going to be big. I think this is going to be a great and very fun game for me to play. I hope they can sell it to people in a way that doesn't freak them out, because when I first loaded EU5, I was like, oh my god, I can't believe how much stuff is in here. Johan, what are you doing? But it didn't take long for me to just be into the, yep, this is just playing Europa Universalis, this feels good, and then learning the systems. Obviously what really helps for me is I had to, quote unquote, force myself to go and read all the dev diaries, the Tinto talks. I had to go and try to summarize them for myself, like personally for my head, but then also in the video. And that sort of reinforcements really did a lot to try to learn as many systems. And I've only just scratched the surface for me too. So no one's going to complain that this game has been dumbed down. And hopefully that leads to tremendous success and another game that gets supported for 10 years. I don't want to see EU6 until, 2035, right? I want this game to have a good long life with lots of post-release support, as I feel that all big, serious strategy games should do. So cross our fingers. I'll see you next time. At some point, we'll be playing the game properly on this channel. Bye-bye. Well, there we go. So yeah, big old randomly rambling chat at the end, but much more my style. Oh man. So yeah, there are a variety of there's still some embargoes and various things like that for some of the content, which is why I keep saying when on the 10th, on Saturday, we'll be able to have more of an extended discussion about various things. But yeah, I was allowed to A, make this video, and B, was allowed to show it on stream right now. Any hint on the release date? No. You guys know what I know for that. At this point, you guys kind of know everything that I know about things, other than the fact that I have technically, yes, I have played EU5. Will remember to click on subscribe. Yeah. What's funny, every now and again, I'm on my alternate YouTube account from Quill 18 Crates or something, and my subscriber list is all weird and different there, but I am subscribed to myself there. I'm like, oh, that's weird. I'm not used to seeing my own videos in the list, and it takes me a while to realize that it's because I'm on a different account. Paradox, Magic Spell says that makes a lot of sense. Magic Spell over on Twitch said Paradox probably doesn't know the release date either. And to be fair, they probably have plans, because you always have plans. But the right thing to do for a game that is still being worked on is to be flexible about that. I'm sure they have a goal, but they might not be 100% locked in. Shoot, we just got the delay announcement for GTA 6, right? I don't think they'd announced a release date before then, but I think there'd been a lot of implication and things that GTA 6 was going to be coming out not May 2026. How did the combat feel? So again, I think I'm gonna pay attention. There's a subscriber. Remember it was month for star. Yeah, unfortunately I can't answer any more specific notes about that, other than what we just saw from the Paradox presentation, and then what you just saw in this video here. We'll have some more extended conversations about it on Saturday. But yeah, I don't want to break the little guidelines they've got, which they do. Things like embargoes and stuff tend to be just so that content providers or content producers don't go and step on each other's content, and there's not a big rush to be the first or whatever. So things get gated like that. Just give everyone a chance. I'm really happy about that. There wasn't a rush to get this video out first, because I wouldn't have been able to do it because I wasn't home and then I was sick. You answer, does the map move with WASD? I will go and reveal the answer to this question. Yes, WASD movement for the map. That's the one thing that gets really funny when I go and play EU4. Now it's like, wait, what? Oh my god, I can't waz the map around. Same thing in Anno 1800, no WASD. I'm like, oh, how do? So I think we'll wrap it up here. I know people have got tons of questions. They're very good and very legitimate questions, but I will wrap things up here. I ran out of snoozes on Twitch, so there's going to be an ad that plays in 50 seconds that I can't avoid anyway. So what's your first fantasy mod you want made for this game? That's a good question. I haven't even played any of the fantasy mods for the other ones. Well, no, that's not true. I guess I played Vampire the Masquerade mod for CK3. I think I've downloaded the... Is it EU4? There's like a World of Warcraft or a Warcraft one? Is it EU4? Maybe? One of those I did download and load at some point, but that was about it. Hey, Notorious. Feel like another good EU4 Let's Player stream would be good. Yeah, no, definitely. Again, it's very funny. I was getting ready to start a new EU4 Let's Play, and then this whole stuff came up and kind of threw it aside. I was thinking about doing another run with some sort of Italian one in some way, because again, the one that we did almost 10 years ago exactly was the one where I wanted to form Italy and be the Emperor of the HRE simultaneously. So we might go and do something else, but yeah, I don't know. Oh yeah, the Fallout mod for Hearts of Iron is amazing. It's so good. Yeah, we'd have to revisit that at some point too, but I will, yeah, so we'll wrap this up here. I got some other work to do. I'm going to try to see if I can pop out a RimWorld video now that I'm done this editing. Man, even this morning I was editing. I probably, oh my God. I don't even want to think about how many hours I was just doing this. I've got like dozens upon dozens of little recordings for like the audio and to try to grab like specific gameplay things. Like I'm playing the game and then making some notes, turning the notes into a script, which then I realize, hold on, I need to go and check some other things. Okay, and then like I got to figure out what I'm going to say, and then I got to make sure I've got the video footage to go along with it. I just got into this business to play video games. Like what the hell? So we're gonna wrap it up here. I think I'm gonna take Bella for a walk, and then I'll judge my voice and energy levels, and so there may or may not be a RimWorld video today. If not, I'll try to have one up for y'all tomorrow, and then hopefully we can get back to a little bit more normal stuff. Anyone who didn't watch the video, please do. You know, at very least, you know, give it a click. Give it a click. You can watch it on silent. You can watch it on mute. It's fine. But I appreciate the views over there because it's very helpful. See ya. Bye-bye.